Spoilers ahead. Watch out, and take care. The film opens with IMF agents Benji, Luther, Ethan, and Brandt recovering a package of nerve gas, sold to terrorists, from a military cargo plane in Belarus. After the mission, Ethan visits a record shop in London, where he gets a message about his recent investigations, to expose a secret organization known as the Syndicate, which is facilitating many terrorist attacks in West-friendly countries. He gets confirmation that the organization is real, but before he can do anything about it, he finds himself locked inside the room, while a guy, who is later revealed to be Solomon Lane, kills the salesgirl in front of him and leaves. At the same time, the CIA director, Alan Hunley, files a case to the Senate committee, reporting about IMF's questionable strategies and misconduct during their missions. As the agency is currently without any secretary, he also convinces the committee to dissolve it and merge with the CIA. Ethan is captured by the Syndicate and is held in a torture cell, where he recognizes one of the guys as Yannick Vinter, known as the Bone Doctor, who was presumed dead by his intelligence agency. Just when Vinter is about to torture him, another Syndicate member, Ilsa Faust, helps him escape captivity, but flees without revealing anything about herself. After making it out safely, Ethan calls Brandt to inform him about the latest events, and to seek his help in finding a blonde guy with glasses, whom he saw at the record shop earlier, as he is his only lead to the Syndicate. In response, Brandt tells him about the IMF's merger with the CIA, which makes Ethan believe his mission is a lost cause now, but Brandt urges him to proceed, as it might be the IMF's last official mission, and he wants to prove their credibility. Back in DC, Alan Hunley questions Brandt about Ethan's whereabouts. When Brandt tells him he is after the Syndicate, Hunley does not believe him, as the CIA thinks Syndicate does not exist at all. 6 months later, the CIA is still trying to locate Ethan, and raid a hideout in Havana, but can't find him, as he is in Paris, and intentionally lures them in to reveal some evidence about the Syndicate members. Ethan's friend, and former IMF member Benji Dunn, who now works with the CIA, gets 2 tickets to the Vienna Opera, and decides to follow the lead, as he thinks it might be from Ethan. Upon arriving there, he is proven to be right, as Ethan contacts him, and seeks his help in finding Lane, who he believes will be attending the show as well. At his directions, Benji visits the opera, where he and Ethan try to stop the Syndicate members, including Ilsa's plan to kill the Austrian Chancellor, who is also attending the event. Although the Chancellor survives the gunshot by Ilsa, he is killed when his car explodes. Meanwhile, Ethan and Ilsa escape out of the building, and are picked up by Benji. In the car, as Ethan searches her for weapons, Ilsa reveals being an undercover member of MI6, who is on a mission to infiltrate the Syndicate. As they are being followed, Ethan pushes her out of the car at her request, to make it look like an escape, so her loyalty won't be questioned by the Syndicate. After learning about the Chancellor's murder, Hunley holds Ethan and Benji responsible, and hands over the case to the Special Activities Division, while ordering them to shoot them down. After taking Benji to his hideout, Ethan gives him a new identity to fly back to DC, and asks him to rejoin his job at the CIA, but Benji decides to stay with him instead. Ethan then gives him the information he has collected so far, and reveals that all Syndicate members are former field operatives, from different countries, who either went missing, or were presumed dead by their agencies. He also shows him Lane's sketch, while telling him is always present at the time of different calamities around the world, and Ethan believes he is the key to taking down the Syndicate. Later, Ethan and Benji retrieve a USB from Ilsa's stuff, which leads them to her in Morocco. As Ethan is busy chasing leads, Brandt calls Luther, and seeks his help in tracking down Ethan and Benji before the CIA does. In Morocco, Ilsa tells them that Solomon Lane, who is actually a former British intelligence member, created the Syndicate. Ethan learns that British intelligence is aware of the Syndicate, but is not sharing the information with the CIA, as they don't want anyone to know that it was created by one of their own members. Ilsa also tells them she is now close to finding the information about Syndicate's members and their agenda, but all the information is stored on a ledger, which is kept in a safety deposit box, beneath a power plant guarded by the military. After discussing the possible ways to reach the safety deposit box, the trio decides to proceed. Benji makes his way in, by hijacking the security systems, while Ethan jumps into the underground vault, to replace the security profile, to let Benji access the box. Although Benji successfully secures the box, Ethan passes out after holding his breath for too long, but is rescued by Ilsa. As Ilsa gives him first aid, Benji returns with the file, but she knocks him unconscious, and flees with the USB. Benji and Ethan start following her, but get into an accident, and are saved by Luther and Brandt, who have just arrived in Casablanca after tracking them down. While they rescue Benji, Ethan resumes the chase, but Ilsa manages to escape again. As the group returns with disappointment, Benji reveals he already copied the contents of the file in his drive, so they have something to work on. After snatching the USB from Ethan and Benji, Ilsa comes back to London to hand it over to her handler Atlee. She thinks her job is done, and she should be taken back in, but Atlee forces her to go back to the Syndicate, and urges her to kill Ethan, to win Lane's trust again. When she disagrees with him, he threatens to leak her information to the CIA, which might get her killed, and convinces her to rejoin Lane. Meanwhile, Ethan and his group try to open the files, but learn it's stored in the British government's virtual red box, and is protected by triple encryption, which can only be unlocked by the British Prime Minister's biometrics. Learning that Lane only used them to steal the data, Brant wants to warn the British Prime Minister about his intentions, but Ethan stops him, and urges the group to find Lane, before he gets to the Prime Minister. Ilsa meets Lane to hand over the disk, but they find it empty. Although angry with her, thinking it was her betrayal, Lane still keeps her as a Syndicate member, and asks her to deliver a message to Ethan. Meanwhile, Ethan and his team arrive in London to meet Ilsa, who tells them about the empty disk, but Benji does not believe it, as he copied the data himself. As Ethan points it out, she figures out it was Atlee who deleted the files, as he wanted to wipe out the evidence of his involvement with the Syndicate. As of now, only Benji has the data. They discuss their possible options, either to hand it over to the CIA, or to Lane, but the conversation is interrupted, as Vinter kidnaps Benji, while Ilsa disappears in the crowd. Frustrated with the situation, Brant thinks Ilsa set them up, and knew what was going to happen, but Ethan disagrees, by saying only Lane is aware of his next move. As they try to come up with a plan to find Benji, Lane calls Ethan, and asks him to hand over the unlocked data to save Benji's life. When Ethan agrees to do it, Brant protests against his decision of going after the Prime Minister, but Ethan convinces him. As part of their plan, Brant then calls Alan Hunley, and urges him to come over to London, if he wants to take Ethan down. When Hunley meets Brant, outside an auction event in London, and learns about Ethan's plan of going after the Prime Minister, he rushes to Atlee to warn him about the possible attack. Upon his suggestion, Atlee calls the Prime Minister for a secret meeting, where Hunley tells him about Ethan and his plans. Brant informs the Prime Minister that Ethan has a disk that he believes is the key to bringing down the Syndicate. In response, the Prime Minister accepts the existence of the Syndicate, and reveals it was actually Atlee's idea to create an organization with former intelligence members, which they can use to hunt down their enemies, within and outside the country. Atlee tries to assure him that the idea was never executed, but the Prime Minister asks him to clarify his position in the public inquiry. The Prime Minister then intends to leave, but Atlee fires a tranquilizer dart at him, and is revealed to be Ethan in the mask. They get the Prime Minister's fingerprints and retinal scans to open the disk, which actually contains the record of different offshore accounts, created to fund the Syndicate's operations. Meanwhile, the real Atlee arrives, but Ethan and Brant take him down as well. Ethan then forces him to accept that the Syndicate was his idea, but Lane went rogue, and turned it against him. Fearing it might compromise his reputation, Atlee now tries to cover it up, by erasing the data on the disk, but luckily they already copied it. Hunley eventually learns Ethan was right from the beginning, as he urges him to further confirm his doubts from Atlee. Ethan learns that the disk contains access to £2.4 billion, saved in different bank accounts, to support the Syndicate, but he destroys the information. Ethan is then called by Lane, who finds out Lane has set up an explosive on Benji's body, which he threatens to detonate if Ethan does not cooperate. Lane talks to him through the microphones he has planted in Benji's body, and informs him that he always knew about his determination, as he did not give up on finding him, even after he killed that girl in the record shop, and planned to use it for his own purpose. As the time on the explosive is quickly running out, Ethan transfers $50 million into Lane's account, to prove that he has access to all the files. He also claims to have memorized all the details, and offers himself, in exchange for Ilsa and Benji. Lane eventually gives in, and turns off the explosives, and orders his team to capture Ethan alive. Ethan asks Benji to go back to Luther and Brant, while he challenges Lane to face him, instead of messing around with his friends. Upon Lane's orders, his team intends to kill Ilsa, and take Ethan with them, but the duo fights against them and escapes. While being chased, Ilsa comes across Vinter, and kills him in the knife fight. Lane also shows up, and tries to take Ethan down, but he lures him into an underground trap, where his team has set up a glass chamber to lock him inside. After Ethan's team takes Lane into custody, he says goodbye to Ilsa, who leaves, saying he knows where to find her again. Alan Hunley, who has now witnessed a successful mission from the IMF, appears in front of the Senate committee, where he proves that the dissolution of the agency was part of their plan to take down the Syndicate. After his request to reinstate the agency is accepted by the committee, Brandt welcomes him as the new secretary of the IMF. The end. Thank you for watching. Subscribe if you'd like to see more videos like this. Turn on the notifications and leave a like to help the channel out.